please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Well, the government has swung into action after ATMs run dry in at least 5 states. The Finance Ministry has issued a statement and the Economic Affairs Secretary has asked people not to panic or hoard cash while allaying concerns of a shortage of currency. However, the centre has also admitted that it is seeing an unusual spurt in currency demand over the last 3 months. The government has conceded that this unusual spurt in currency demand is being seen across parts of Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh and Bihar. And in a bid to calm trade nerves, the centre has also assured that it holds adequate reserves of currency notes. So what has led to this unusual spurt? We're going to discuss that and more. But first up, here's a snapshot of what's been happening across the country and how the government is responding.
पर्याप्त कैश है, उपलब्ध कराया जा रहा है। थोड़ी डिमांड अननेसेसरी जो जनरेट हो रही है वो कम हो जाए तो बेहतर है।
कैश की कमी नहीं है। कैश तो आज भी हम 1.25 लाख करोड़ रुपए के उसमें हैं और वो 1.25 लाख करोड़ रुपए हम अन्य जगहों पर जहां कमी हो रही है तुरंत उसको भिजवा रहे हैं।
So ATMs across 5 states run dry. Now Ritu Singh is standing by to explain to us how the government and the Reserve Bank plan to tackle this cash crunch. Ritu, we've heard from both the Reserve Bank as well as the government allaying or trying to allay concerns, saying that we have enough stock and there is no need to panic, no need to hoard cash. But how do the numbers stack up, Ritu?
Well, you know, first, Shireen, the government has acknowledged that there has been a significant spurt in demand. In fact, they validated by saying that on average, the government supplies about 20,000 crore rupees in cash supply per month. But that supply has now been stepped up to 45,000 crore rupees since the month of January. So what is the government doing in response to this increased spurt in demand? Well, it is printing more currency. What the government had to say today, and this is from the DEA Secretary, Mr. Govt, that the 500 rupee notes, you know, which banking sources tell us have been in shorter supply, as have been the 2,000 rupee notes. Now, the government plans to ramp up the supply of 500 currency notes to about 70 to 75,000 crore rupees pieces per day. They also plan to ramp up the supply of the 2,000 rupee notes. Of course, they also said that if there is any increase, further increase from here on for the demand for cash, there is enough and more reserves with the government to meet that demand. In fact, they say we have about 1.75 lakh crore rupees to meet any spurt and cash demand if there is a requirement. The DEA secretary also hinted that a pattern that they've noticed is that fewer 2,000 rupee notes are coming back in circulation after they've been issued, hinting possibly that there could be a hoarding of these high denomination notes by the public, again urging them to not go ahead and hoard money because there is no crunch, so to speak. The currency in circulation, when we're talking about all of these crunch, if you compare currently, as per the latest data of the Reserve Bank of India, stands at 18.42 lakh crore rupees. Now, if you compare this with the pre-demonetization level, which was about 17.01 lakh crore rupees in October of 2016, the currency in circulation is actually higher than what it was. And if you talk about the deposits, that is another allegation that money is not coming back in the system. The deposits, as of FY18 have grown by 6.7% compared to, of course, 15.3% in the previous year. But that, of course, is a lot to do with the fact that demonetization happened and the public was forced to return that currency in the banking system. So which is why there's been, yes, lower deposits in the system this year compared to the previous year, but the currency in circulation is almost at the same level, if not more, than what we had seen pre-demonetization days.
Okay, Ritu, thanks very much for taking us through those numbers. But let me go across to Lata now. Lata, the government acknowledging the fact that there has been an unusual spurt in the last 3 months. The reason for that, they haven't given us. They're alluding to the fact that there is some hoarding mentality, that there is no shortage and hence people should not resort to hoarding. But the question then is, where has this hoarding mentality started? Why are people hoarding cash to start with? What is the reason for the cash crunch that we're seeing today?
Well, I don't think it's so much as hoarding cash as withdrawing cash that is the problem. And this actually appears to have, started at least in 2013-14, certainly in 2014-15, very much in the conversation in the press conferences of the Reserve Bank. This issue kept coming up. And let me, well, before we come to the current 2,000 rupee notes, let's go back to the historical increase in the currency in circulation. Let's pull up that table from 2012. We have a table of how much currency in circulation increased. In the year 2012 and 13 and 14, you saw the increase in currency in circulation. You know, these numbers are not hard and fast. I've just picked March 31st as the date, and I'm giving you these currency in circulation numbers, currency in the hands of the public. It used to be under 10% or around 10% growth annually, the amount of currency that the public withdrew. Now, when you suddenly came to 2015, it rose to about 11%, and by 16, it has risen to 15%. So, the Reserve Bank was noticing a very accelerated pace at which people were withdrawing currency, and maybe that was one reason for the demonetization, too much of cash usage for everyday transactions. But it has returned with a vengeance. People are paying for everyday transactions more by currency than they are by, you know, non-cash instruments like cards or digital. Why was there an accelerated use of cash after 2015? Everything is hunch over here. Sometimes it is because of elections that there is an accelerated use of cash because they are not billed activities. But I just want to venture whether there is a connection between service taxes and the way in which currency usage has increased. Up until 2012-13, very few services were taxed. In the 2013 budget, there was a negative list of services and everything else was taxed. Now, services are C2C, you know. You consume tuition services, doctors, legal services, chartered accountants, massages, spas, gyms. All these are C2C where, you know, you start imposing a service tax. Then that service tax increases from 10 to 12% in the 2013 budget. In the 2015 budget, it goes to 14.5%, and then a Krishi Kalyan cess is added, it becomes 15%, and in 2017, it becomes 18% as GST. Now the tendency to therefore pay for your spa or pay for your gym or pay for your doc or pay for a tuition services, a tuition class through cash becomes higher because it is 18% more expensive if you have to be honest and pay through a check. My hunch is that this is one big reason why the rate of withdrawal is growing astronomically, especially after GST.
Yes, that could be something to ponder over, that is the GST leading to us becoming a more cash economy as opposed to a less cash economy because people are choosing to not get into the GST ambit and pay that 18% rate that Lata was talking about. And that is a serious concern that the government is going to have to deal with. But Lata, in that scenario now, I mean, this is irreversible, right? I mean, what the government can or cannot do to try and encourage digital transactions is a separate matter. The GST is here to stay. 18% is here to stay. We are now hearing from the CBEC that the danda is coming. Enforcement measures will be imposed to get people who are out of the GST net to pay their taxes. The question then is, are we set for higher currency demand? Is this the new normal?
It seems to be that way. Even if you looked at from 2015-16 onwards, and we showed you the bar chart, it appears that more people are using, you know, there are more people who are using these kinds of services, luxury services, like a spa or a tuition teacher or a higher level of medical wellness services. It's quite possible that, you know, because in this service, you can easily avoid the tax, people are paying more. It's quite possible. It's only a hunch. How the government will tackle it? Well, maybe you don't make honesty so expensive. Probably a 10% will be paid through check and card, but when it becomes nearly 20%, then people want to resort to tax. Maybe that is a solution. It's not a happy solution. It's not happy to admit that we are a dishonest people, but that could be one reason. I just want to point out to some other reasons that bankers are telling me that are, you know, of more recent and more supply-oriented origin. You know, both the DA Secretary and Ritu refer to a large number of 2,000 rupee notes not coming back. Now, if you are storing cash at home in 2,000 rupee notes, if that has to be replaced, and the government is replacing it with smaller denomination. If it is 100 rupee notes, they have to print 20 notes to replace one 2,000 rupee note or 500 rupee notes. Now, what we understand from currency chest sources is that actually the amount of 500 rupee notes coming to the chests has declined in the last 4 or 5 months. And that also, you know, this is a supply issue. Separately, we hear from, again, currency printing sources that the Reserve Bank had reduced the indent, or that is the tender of buying notes. And now, suddenly, because of the crunch, they are increasing it. And those who have to supply the ink and the paper are saying that, you know, you reduce the intent, so we didn't source the ink. Now we don't have the supplies ready. So there is actually a supply crunch as well. There is a separate demand increase, but there is a supply decrease.
You know, speaking of the supply issues, Lata, you were talking about 500 rupees, but isn't it a fact, and I remember they're seeing that SBI report as well, which seemed to suggest that the Reserve Bank was holding back the 2,000 rupee notes as well?
Well, I don't know so much. I mean, not too many people corroborated the 2,000 rupee supply because 2,000 rupees is not a very transactional note. How much would you go to the bazaar with a 2,000 rupee note? You will return with nothing. Can you go into the Delhi metro with a 2,000 rupee note? Can you use the DDC buses? I can't use BEST buses in Bombay with a 2,000 rupee note.
Sure.
It's not a very transactional note. I am suspicious of that explanation. I am more willing to believe the explanation that people store black money or whatever, cash, in 2,000 rupee notes. That could be another one reason why, if you want to replace it, you have to print, you know, many more small denomination notes, which you may not be prepared for from a supply standpoint.
Well, let's take this conversation forward now. Joining us, our former RBI Deputy Governor R. Gandhi, as well as A. Prasanna, Chief Economist at ICICI Securities. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us. Mr. Gandhi, let me start by asking you, the Finance Ministry and the Reserve Bank have set up a panel, and that panel has the Economic Affairs Secretary, the Banking and Financial Services Secretary, DG of the RBI, Mr. Kanugo, and 2 other members. Now, this panel has been formed to review cash situation, to monitor withdrawal trends, and to look at the adequate supply of currency. They've already had a few meetings. The terms of reference of this panel are not at least clear to us at this point in time. Mr. Gandhi, what do you make of the numbers that we're faced with and the fact that we're now seeing what the government acknowledges and the Reserve Bank acknowledges is an unusual spurt in currency demand as well as withdrawal?
Okay. My reading is like this. Had there not been demonetization today, the currency in circulation based on long-term trend growth, you would expect that it should be around 23 lakh plus. So whereas we are 18. This 5 lakh crores reduction is the effect of demonetization. That's what I have been thinking. That is a good one. That is the people who held the cash have now been brought on to keep that money in deposits. But looks like the public wants to go back to their old way of doing the things, that is going back to pre-monetization based behavior. That would mean that they demand cash not just for ordinary normal transactions, but also for keeping their savings in cash. That what we thought that we have brought change in their saving behavior in preferring non-cash savings rather than cash savings, looks like it has that expectation has not been realized. That could be one reason.
Okay, Mr. Gandhi, Mr. Gandhi and Mr. Prasanna, I want to ask you all that just the last 3 months' behavior. I mean, okay, people want to go back to cash, but look at the extent to which cash has increased. I have the weekly statistical supplement currency in circulation of Jan 5th. That is 16.23 lakh crore in circulation. And right now, Rajneesh Kumar gave us the latest number that he has got, which is 18.29 lakh crore as of today, which means in 3.5 months, 2 lakh crore more has been withdrawn. Mr. Gandhi, you will admit this is unprecedented. Even when you were there, pre-demo, we reached a high of 30,000 crore a month. 50,000 crore a month is unusual, sir. You have any explanations for this?
Yeah, there are 2-3 possible reasons, because we do not know exactly. We are only guessing. One thing that if you look at correspondingly, during the last quarter, the increase in the credit Suddenly it has picked up. Especially last month, you would look at, if you look at March figures and February figures of the way credit has grown in the economy, in the banking system, it is phenomenal. Something like 4 lakh crores or something like that. So of which certainly there will be demand by cash. There could be the drawal of those credit. So that is possible. That's happened increase in the last 3 months. That could be one of the outcome. Could be because of the large scale increase in credit. Okay.
Well, let me put this to the economists then. Prasanna, what has credit offtake gone up to? Barely 10-11%. We have seen even 23% credit growth in the past. We have seen 20% credit growth in the past. Should that explain why in 3.5-4 months we should withdraw 50,000 crore per month? Any explanations that you can think of?
No, I agree. I mean, if you look at this credit growth in a historical context, it doesn't sound big, but ultimately we have to do incremental analysis, right? Okay. So we were transitioning from a period of both weaker growth and slower credit growth. And then if you look at the last 4-5 months, definitely if you look at high frequency data, growth has picked up. And like you point out, even credit growth has picked up. So that is definitely one reason why the currency demand would have gone up. It's also possible the seasonal patterns are shifting. I mean, normally in India, the Q3 is when the currency demand peaks out because of festival season, and then Q4 is usually slightly less than Q3. But it's possible the seasonal patterns have shifted, which is something because in between demonetization happened and we had nearly 2 years of abnormality. That is something probably which we have all lost sight of, including the RBI. So maybe it's just a question of kind of getting to grips with the new normal.
Okay. Shri?
So you're suggesting, Prasanna, then that this is the new normal?
Well, that is to be seen, of course. I do agree that the growth rate is quite high. I mean, if you look at the compounded annual growth rate over 2016, FY16, which was the last normal year, the second half of FY18 is growing at nearly 15-16%. This is currency in circulation I'm talking about. And then if you go back and check FY16 over FY15 itself was a fairly big jump. So which means that actually the intensity of demand or intensity of cash demand is still quite high. And that's kind of, and like Mr. Gandhi said, we seem to have gone back to the pre-demonetization behavior in terms of demand for cash, which is a bit surprising because you would have thought after demonetization there would have been a little bit of a change in behavior. So clearly it looks like whatever incentives are there to use non-cash alternatives, they are not kind of doing their job. And so my sense is, of course, there is possibly also a precautionary motive. Maybe because of demonetization, maybe subconsciously people are trying to keep more cash, maybe lower denominations cash, and that is also causing.
But how would you explain that? I mean, it's been 2 years to demonetization. Why would we suddenly in the last 3 months see this kind of a drastic jump in the numbers, Prasanna?
Fair point. I mean, even in Q3, the growth was high. I mean, the first half of last financial year was anyway remonetization, and after that, we expected to transition to a normal seasonal pattern. So yes, I mean, even Q3, the numbers are a bit higher on the higher side, and of course, Q4 it really picked up. So yes, I mean, we don't have all the explanations, so we just could come up with one or two, which seems logical.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, I just wanted to butt in. There is one minor explanation which I got from some bankers that prepaid card instruments, you know, people like Oxygen and all issue those prepaid cards. Those rules got strengthened, or rather were tweaked by RBI to become very strict for, you know, doing KYC for these cards. And some bankers say that because of this rules becoming stricter, a lot of people have stopped using those PPIs. And there is more cash on delivery when you, you know, buy on air, buy, you know, digitally or through e-commerce. That trend also was noticed.
Well, I don't know how much of the percentage of the e-commerce market was actually, Yes, Mr. Gandhi, you wanted to make a point?
Yeah, because the PPA-related explanation theoretically is right, but it is not supported by the data. Because if you look at the payment system data that is coming out, the payment through the digital means are increasing only. So, but if because of PPI, there should be
you make a valid point there that we've actually seen, we've seen the volume of digital transactions go up, and at the same time, we're now seeing a situation where cash in the last 3 months, demand and withdrawal has shot up. So we are trying to reconcile the two. But Prasanna and Mr. Gandhi, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV18. As we head into a break, let's turn our focus to the capital. Reports of cash crunch across many pockets coming in. Rituparna Bhuyan brings us a ground check.
ATMs across the country are not dispensing cash. So what is the situation in the national capital? Well, people whom we spoke to tell us that in the past couple of days, there were indeed problems on getting cash. I checked, for example, at a national media center, right at the heart of Delhi, not very far from Finance Ministry, and the ATM inside has not been dispensing cash for the past couple of days. In fact, it's the same with ATMs around this area, which is next to the Central Secretariat. And we are going to see what is the situation in other big markets of Delhi. Well, as I said, there is a cash crunch here in Delhi as well. This is an HDFC ATM right in Bengali market. There are 3 more ATMs in this area where we did not find any cash, and people here tell us that the cash supply has been erratic over the past couple of days here in Bengali market in the heart of Delhi.
कस्टमर काफ़ी फेस कर रहे हैं, कस्टमर को काफ़ी परेशानी हो रही है। पिछले 2 महीने से हमारी मार्केट में 5 ATM है, इंक्लूडिंग 2 बैंक में है, 3 मार्केट में है। 5 बैंकों में कैश अवेलेबल नहीं होता। ये 2 लास्ट 2 months, everybody is